morning, good afternoon over in Milano. We're very honored to have Dr. Pier Luigi Lattuada with us. He's a visionary leader in transpersonal psychology and psychotherapy and integral medicine. With over 50 years of experience as a physician, as a psychologist, as a psychotherapist, Dr. Lattuada has dedicated his life to exploring the intersection of science, transcendence, and human potential. So Dr. Lattuada founded Biotransenergetics, a groundbreaking transcendent discipline that integrates creativity, consciousness, and the transformation to foster self-realization and healing. So it is an important model that contributes to the integration of all these different disciplines and will serve as a background or as a base for our discussion today. He serves as the director of the training school in transpersonal psychotherapy in Milan that is recognized by Italy's Ministry of Education and is the president of the Integral Transpersonal Institute. His work has been presented at over 60 international conferences and has inspired countless individuals across the globe. So he is also the president of Eurotas, a transpersonal global association. And in addition to this, he's also, he has a PhD in behavioral studies, a PsyD in clinical psychology, and he's an adjunct faculty member at Sophia University. He has co-authored 16 books and numerous articles that delve into awakening consciousness, self-transcendence, and the transformative power then of creativity. He is also a poet. So this afternoon, we're privileged to hear from a true pioneer whose work bridges ancient wisdom with modern science. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Pier Luigi Lattuada as he guides us through this enlightening exploration of creativity, consciousness, and transformation.
Oh.
Thank
you, Dorothy. Thank you, Chris. After this incredible presentation, I am challenged to say something interesting.
Yes, that's the point. We're putting you on the spot,
but
right?
I also know that you have prepared a lot of interesting questions. I am eager to answer to some of them. But as we agreed, I will try to just give a few main points of the methodology of biotransenergetics, which also will be challenging because biotransenergetics is simple but also is complex. Let me see. Okay. I would like, first of all, to just give you a picture of because you are used to say, for example, psychotherapy is a methodology. There are several methodologies, but I guess that it is important that some methodology needs to be a full discipline. So, for example, a methodology, you see, this is, I call it synergetic model to explain what is the biotransgenetic in total. It's not just a methodology, means it's not something that answer to the question, how can do this? How can be well, for example, or a lot of tools and practice to do something, but also invite you to be aware of the ontology and the epistemology you have behind them. Because what we think and the assumption that we have, they are working in our action. And so it is important to know which is the ontology and the epistemology we have behind. For example, one of the point of the ontology of biotransenergetics, we should say this: nothing but psyche. Everything is psyche. But psyche is not just the psyche intended as modern psychology intend, means psyche is into the mind and the mind is into the brain. But psyche intended as the totality of being. The circle, you see, the circle is a metaphor of this unity. And there are a lot of words in the, let me see, there are a lot of words in the story of humanity that explain what does it mean, psyche, or same. For example, the self is another term to explain the psyche, or Atman in Vedanta tradition, or the supreme consciousness. Also, there are a lot of words, concept in all the tradition that explain that which is what we are. We are part of the psyche. We are part of the self. And that self, as you see, is in a circle. Means the self, as Jung say, is the archetype of unity. What does it mean that the self is archetype of unity? And also that the self has no space, no time, and is the subject. If we have this ontology, that we are part of this archetype of unity that goes to the unity, means is holotropics, goes to the good, goes to the harmony, and we are in, of course, everything happens in our life is something that brings us to the unity, to the harmony. And then a methodology should be something that ally to that self, to that unity. If everything is already going to the harmony, which are this infinitesimal part of this, we should respect the laws of this self. First of all, as no space, as no time, and this subject. What does it mean? That there is difference, but also there is no difference between inside and outside. Means that the space and the time is the aspect of the the ego, but the self is beyond space and time. So we should be aware that think to this being in present, meditate to be present. But if we know that our true nature is to be present, because our essence is beyond space and time, then everything becomes easier. Then any methodology you want to use become easier if you have this ontology that we are the self. Of course, we have to, the experience have to validate this. This is the reason why, for example, the epistemology, because the ontology answers to the question what it is. The epistemology answers to the question how you can say what you are saying. So how can I say that the self is the unity, the archetype of unity, and we are into the self? This map of the square and circle is an aspect of the epistemology of biotransenergy that tells us everything happens on the square, but everything happens in the square is into the self, the circle. Think to your problem, to any problem that psychology wants to solve. Think to any goal you want to reach. Think to any quality you want to express. Happen into that square on the stage. And if you are aware only to appear on stage, we are missing the essence, which is the circle. We are missing that there is that essential process happening that brings us to the harmony and to the unity. So the invitation of this map is be aware that what happened, everything appears, any evidence is indicating an essence behind. This is an epistemological map, just an example of one of the epistemological map of biotransfer energetics, which sustain the methodology. Means, if you want to get the true nature of your problem, go beyond. Go beyond the mind, go beyond the first attention, and try to get a second attention with get the circle. If we get the square and the circle, then everything is much more easier. Just one map for the phenomenology, and then let me see, I need another one. Here, phenomenology, which that self, that is the circle, how we can experience that self, how we can experience what appear on stage through ours. This I call it organismic self, means physical body, energetic body, emotional body, mental body, spiritual body. Means anything happens in that self, we recognize through our bodies. And you see, these are, I call this microcosmic content, means the sensation, we get the physical body through sensation, the subtle body of energetical body through subtle sensation, we get the emotional body through moods, feelings, emotion, needs, desire, we get the mental level through thought, paradigm memory, vision, and so. And we get the transpersonal level through insight, intuition, and vision. If you want to get an integral experience of that self, we should master the inner experience of all our bodies. If something happens on the body, the physical body, is not just on the physical body, but is related with everything happens in other bodies. So we should have a methodology. This is the phenomenology. We should have a methodology that works to keep all these in contact. Just one point about methodology, and then I don't bother you more with the theory. Let me see, 3. We should, if it is true that the self is the principle of unity, that one of the point of methodology should be observe this triad, which I call primary circle. In front of any event, first of all, try to observe with clear eyes, with no judgment. Try to accept. If you observe with no judgment and you accept, we will get the true nature of what is happening. You will get awareness. So, exerting, practicing this primary circle, observation, acceptance, and awareness, you will master your experience. This is just a point of methodology. How to do this, for example, by, as you see, there are a lot of true. These are 3 cornerstones of biotransfer energetics. You can pass to the zero, disappear, let it go. Just recognize that everything is happening is a manifestation of the self, which is perfect, eternal, and the subject. So disappear to everything. Disappear means disidentify, and persist in contact, stay in contact, stay there. Be aware that our experience always goes run away of something. Even trying to find a solution of something is running away. Having a strategy to get a goal is running away. The invitation is stay. If it is true that the self is self-organizing and the principle of harmony going to the unity, disappear to all your mental content identification, stay in contact, and the self, the content of the self will start working. Then master the trance, which I call trance, master the experience, the deep experience of yourself. The self will work and will help you to transform your consciousness. For now, I stop here. I could go for hours with this, but just some points, if could be.
Yeah, no, thank you, Pier Luigi, because I think I think these things are very difficult to talk about and so and to bring together. And a lot of your slides that you were going through really, revealed that, right? So this idea that your model brings together the different elements of our experience as living human beings, really. And then we have these question marks that are especially apparent from a transpersonal perspective. It's like, well, how does it all then come together with this? And so I feel that what you are bringing is inclusive and inclusive of different traditions as well. So that will mean a lot of slides and a lot of explanation, and you could go on for a really long time, I'm sure, because all you need to do is change the perspective slightly and come in from a wisdom perspective or a different tradition perspective or an integral perspective, which is part of the transpersonal, or just, the transpersonal, or like we were discussing before, you come in from neuroscience and you find different vehicles of explaining these phenomena. Asa Jolie, somebody very important, and that was sort of where I was going also with my questions, is connection as we're going to dive into creativity of super consciousness, the unconscious and the fully conscious, right? Because yes, you're saying if you are in mindfulness in the present moment, then that's the first step. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee your connection to your deeper self and, let's say, unconscious, super conscious. So how do you differ between that? Because there's a tension there too. And then of course, have more questions. Want to? Yeah.
Yes, I would like to point out again the importance of ontology and epistemology. Means, of course, the ancient tradition tell us you have to be present, stay here and now, let your thought flow, and say, okay. But if in my depth, or in my unconscious in this case, there is the assumption that if I don't afford, I don't get anything, for example, an assumption, how can be present here and now? This is a conflict to the practice, the methodology, be present, and my unconscious assumption, you have to afford to get something, So I need a maps, ontological map that tell me everything is happening because the self is bringing you. If I have this map, it become easier to stay present here and now, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And by, of course, I don't present you all the maps, you are speaking about superconscious, conscious, and unconscious.
Mhm.
There are steps, of course, of consciousness and level, topics level into this circle, this self, as different topics, places, of course, such as superconscious and unconscious. By, for example, think again to the process of disappearing, stay in contact, and let it flow. By doing this, we create the opportunity to what is beyond the stage appears. That beyond could be from the unconscious or from the superconscious. This could be something that comes from the removed things as Freudian or Freudian conscience, what I don't want to see, or come from the shadow of Jungian shadow, or comes from qualities, higher qualities. How differentiate these? For example, you can use the map pre-personal, personal, transpersonal, or you can use the map state of consciousness, instinctive consciousness, rational consciousness, intuitive consciousness, unitive consciousness. You have several maps that tell you which material from where is coming, you know. But also, and now we should name another important point, which is archetypal, the archetypes. The archetype, we could say that in the level of consciousness, the norm, ordinary consciousness, we are into our ego, no? The personal, what we know of ourselves. And the personal level, getting the transpersonal level means to recognize that what happens to us is archetypal, is not just personal. And having maps that explain to us that any phenomenology which happens is related with some archetypes, we have a line, evolutionary line. For example, think to the warrior. I am used to do this example of the warrior. If I recognize I am here and I live angry, I am anger. If I have just a sight, personal, ordinary sight, I say, okay, you have the angry, you have to work with your angry. If I have a psychodynamic vision, this angry comes from the unconscious,
Right.
comes from the problem with your father or anything. Okay, because if my maps is just this, I only can try to understand this anger and work with my inner child, of course. But if I recognize that this anger is a process linked with the warrior that comes from violence, think to the Ulysses and the archetypes, comes from the violence, goes to the will of the frustration of my incapacity to express myself, goes to the aggressivity, goes to the self affirmation, goes to the self-actualization, to the self-realization. Is a process, and to the self-transcendence. If I fight against the anger and I only see the anger as a problem, I never get the self, because this anger is a force, is archetypal force pertaining to the quality of the warrior that unfold the difference level since the from the violence or the frustration of my inner child removed in the unconscious, from the anger that comes on stage of my personality, to the warrior that express yourself, but maybe steps there, just express himself and express his power, but keep staying there in the third chakra, linked with the power. Next step is this power should pass to the heart, compassion, and go to self-expression and go to the self-realization. So the line process that goes from unconscious to the superconscious to the self-realization. But this process is the self wants that this happens.
Let me just go back. I mean, that was a brilliant explanation of it, right? It's like saying, well, these terms can't be any terms unless they're experienced. So you walked us through the experience of all of these connections that we can have. And I think then we can link this back to creativity too, because essentially for creativity to come in, we need to be present. And so I could put it simply. Your nervous system has to be at rest in a certain way. You can't be in a fight or flight state, because otherwise none of this will make sense, or you will not have access to it. Although you might, and this is a great point, you might be able to channel fear in the same way that you're speaking about channeling anger. Or where we're like diving deep immediately is like, okay, so we have this creative force that is moving through us, coming in from an unconscious process into a conscious process to a super conscious process. And this is then the creative that then transforms us, and that we can express this or not. So this is our choice, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Correct?
What you say open me to several. Uh, First, start from you cite neurosciences. For example, the default mode of our brain is the equivalent to stay stuck into our chronicized attitude, habits. And of course, to go beyond and to let another step of brain, on all the region of brain works, you have to go beyond, to disappear to ourselves, to give up, to enter deeper and pass through, no? And so the changes in our brain are, of course, linked with the changes of our attitude and our consciousness. But also, let me see, you spoke about from the unconscious to conscious to superconscious. It is important, as in this case Wilber tell us, taking from Plotinus, there is the way up and way down.
Yep.
So this self is a play, we would say, between Eros and Agape. The Eros is the creative power of the self, wanting to know, because the creativity of the self, we should say also, wants to know itself. So if you imagine the quality of the self as Eros, that wants to know itself and wants to overcome and transcend itself in this way up. The self is creative, but our attachment, our fear, our trauma,
Yes.
and but you say, okay, so you have to grow up, yes, and cleaning up, but also you have to waken up. There is the agape, the superconscious, the self through the superconscious is working We are not alone in facing our trauma. We are not alone in facing our fear or anger. There is always there, in the moment we are facing our problem, there is the force of the agape, wanting to, the superconscious qualities, we could say, that wants to allow to work again. So we have to recognize and let it work. Imagine if you have
I mean,
this.
so what you're saying, so if we bring it, like we just go, okay, the action point. So many people are going to have a question, I think, around, well, how do I access creativity, right? Because that's sort of this thing that we have, this conversation that we have, is whether it's for people who are in business or therapy or wherever. I mean, you need this creativity everywhere. So how do I access it? So basically, what I'm hearing you say is this ability to just lean into what the present moment gives us in our own experience, and to let go of all the filters that we have. And I'm laughing because that sounds so easy, but you know and experience this archetypal movement in its fullest form, whatever it is. So accepting that fully, not clamping down on the personal story or the personality structure that then confines us in the way, because that's a distortion, but we just let go of it, and then we're in a receiving mode, which brings us back maybe to default mode network in a nice way, because that's just an opening. And then we're able to, it is like we channel, it's not ours,
Yeah,
correct?
yes, yes, yes. You see again how it is important to have ontology and epistemology. If I, to me, the play is the self is working way up and way down, archetypes wants to goes to the unity. If this is true, then creativity is the process of ours. Our self is creative, but we are far from. So, if you want to be creative, the first answer would be go in the place of the creativity, where creativity is. Creativity is into the self, is the self.
Okay,
Get,
okay,
get
so
the self, and you will be creative.
yes, but I have to raise my hand here because there is the self with a little s, and then there's the self with a big S, right? And so we have to differentiate between the two,
Yeah,
because the
yeah,
self with a little s, if you go that way, then you're in all the attachments, you're in all the thoughts, you're in all the scenarios, you're in all the habits, and I mean, sure, you can be creative from there. I mean, so this would be a debate, because just because you're not able to connect to the archetypal or the super conscious from that perspective does not mean that you're not being creative when you act from the level of personality structure, so the little s. But I
yes,
think what
yes,
you were saying was the big S is like, that's the ultimate creativity, or maybe we say the creativity with a big C.
yes, 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 of course. It's a matter of also of nomenclature. If the self with the little self is the high, the personal self, and the transpersonal self is. But also we should say there is the totality of ourself, which is not the I, the totality of ourself. And so this process to go, we can be creative into the I, we can be creative into the self, and we can be creative as transpersonal self. these are the state of consciousness, of course, the level of development. For example, Goswami speak about situational creativity and fundamental creativity. Imagine we are into the room. We can be creative in this room. We can change everything. We can paint. We can do everything. When we are aware that there is the walls and there is the door and we can go beyond, then we will be creative in all the building. When we are aware that the building is into a environment, we can go and be creative into the environment. And so the more we expand our consciousness, the more we can go from the situational creativity to the fundamental creativity. In psychological terms, this means we will be creative in higher stages of development. Because creativity also could be very dangerous. Imagine the creativity of making the war. Or how creative were the Nazi into the
There you go.
camp. They were so creative. They found incredible solutions to exterminate the Jews. So creativity should be linked with the evolutionary steps of consciousness.
Yes.
Any level has creativity, but is always the process of the self. If you are close into, for example, the instinctive consciousness, or in the mythological thinking, we should speak about the stage of thinking. If you are in the mythological way of thinking, imagine the self that works and want to be creative. But human being, the I, is stuck into mythological thinking. Mythological thinking say, we are, if you pertain to belong to my community, are good.
Yes.
If not, you are bad. You know
Yes.
something in this moment in USA, but
Yes.
also in it. Anyway, if my mindset is that all the good is in our community and all the worst is in another community, imagine how creative I can be with the mythological thinking and how dangerous this would be. Then we should apply creativity together with awareness
Yes.
to recognize, I am thinking in mythological way, America first or Italy first or something, me first, mythological way, me first, or my family first, mafia, my family first.
My tribe.
Yeah, my tribe. We should go to the rational, which try to say, no, we can dialogue, I understand that you and there is a rational creativity. But creativity, rational creativity may help us to live together, but think to the Switzerland. We are all living in peace, but creativity is something that, because we have to follow the rules.
Yep.
Beyond the rational, there are pluralistic, holistic, integral, or others higher level of consciousness, where I take the responsibility, maybe also to flow into the rules, to break the wall, to think beyond the box, out of the box, and so. But I have to. It's not enough to be creative. I have to be aware where creativity, which kind of thinking the creative is taking this creativity and is using the creativity.
Yes. Yes. And it changes the flavor. I mean, this is the examples that you were giving. It changes the flavor of the expression depending on where you're at or what your lens is and how at what stage of maturity and this can
Think,
get
yes,
personal,
think how
right? But
many.
we're like we're we're constantly, in other words, when we speak about creativity from a transpersonal perspective, really, we cannot say you're not being creative, because just the act of being alive, even if you sit down and you don't do anything, you're just sitting down in your favorite coffee shop, and you're watching people and you're having your coffee, and that's it. You're still creating.
Yes, also, imagine uh, too much, too much thing to say.
Yes.
Um, I forgot.
It passed through. It'll
I,
come back. It will come back,
we,
Pier Luigi. You know what? I have a question here. But we've been kind of discussing this in the chat.
creativity, excuse me,
Yeah. Oh,
creativity of the artist. No, is not enough. How many artists are creative and suffer, and how many rock star suicided and were so creative? How many think to the painters? How many painters were think to Van Gogh and so and anything, or think to the dancer? They are so creative in the dance, and if you go in other contest, they are stuck into rationality, for example. So means that creativity also may be uh, no, closed into a contest and not be, as I said, situational and not fundamental.
okay. So I would argue with you right there, because I would just say at that moment in time, they're in a flow state. So it's bringing in Chikmahali, this idea of flow, where yes, you're at a certain level and maybe you are not settled, you know, you're settled in your level, but in your level of maturity, but you have access all the time to these exceptional human experiences, which is why we also talk about those in transpersonal psychology. And in those, you may just be in a state of flow, which is like a direct way of accessing big C and the big S, the big self and the big creativity for that moment in time. So then what you're saying context is, that context becomes a channel, a direct channel to a higher state of expression, which may not be yours for 24/7, meaning for 24 hours and 7 days a week, right? So it may not be that, but but at that moment in time, you are that, because you become that sort of vessel, which is the beauty of flow. And I always talk about flow also for students, and for anyone really, studying, because it allows you to access places that may otherwise be closed off. So context. So you're providing a gate for transformation through that context, for these artists, and then you're back into your
Yeah.
everyday. And maybe that's why then those people are so depressed, because it was really nice over here. So why am I over there? Like, what happened, right? Which is, by the way, I have to link this in with this question from Joshua, um, which is this question of, so where's the ego, and where is the spiritual depth? And this path is, so everything we've been talking about is really this bridge, right? There's two extremes, but they're not. We're talking about these extremes, but we're also talking about the bridge.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Pier Luigi is addressing all the time. And then, just putting terms into it and giving a chance to speak about, how do you reach it? So that then is the meaning of life. But really what Pier Luigi was also saying is like, okay, so you have these artists, they're, you know, sensitive, and then they're allowed into this context of expression, and then they're back to normal. So back into their state where they match on their level of development, transpersonal development now. And maybe that doesn't feel good.
Think to you spoke about the state of flow, for example. The state of flow is not enough because of, as we said, I enter in state of flow, and then who is organizing the state of flow? If I enter state of flow to have a performance, then I step back and the state of flow ends. If I enter in the state of flow to understand myself and to go deeper into my shadow and to get the contact with my higher qualities, then I use the state of flow for transforming, for shifting from the situational to fundamental creativity, to growing up along the steps of evolutionary stages of consciousness. So it is, again, think to the square and circle again, the flow, but in this case, in the stage there is, but who is organizing this experience I had? Who is the guy, the other one behind that takes this and want to use for example, if I am my high to go to the high, to the self, to the transpersonal self, if my high is my dominant personality as a subpersonality of self, of sense of inferiority. So I have a teenager inside. I get a great experience of flow, which I feel myself in contact with everything, loved by the God and so. Then when I came back, the teenager takes this experience and think I am the best. Because inferiority, of course, goes to the superiority.
Yeah.
I have to work to recognize that teenager inside me, that take the subpersonality that takes the experience and grow up, work with him to if the adult take the flow, then okay. And the adult that take the flow maybe become a good scholar or a good and become stuck into the good scholar if is not aware that the adult is not the end of the process, but there is the wise one, for example, beyond. And so I have to educate the adult in me and put the adult in contact with the wise one, the hero in the journey, and find that there is another dragon to fight, which is the dragon of the normality, the dragon of the good position in life, of the career and so, no? Because I am asked to go beyond, to realize creatively myself wanting to reach out
Yes.
this fulfillment. So
Well,
any
I know.
levels as is challenge, of course.
Right. I mean, you could say, from a Chinese philosophy perspective too, it's the Tao. You're following the Tao, but maybe you're disagreeing with the Tao because you don't really want that part, right? So you just really nicely bridged back, and I want to recognize that, meaning, okay, even if you're experiencing states of ultimate creativity through this flow, in that moment context, when you come back, if you're not able to integrate, and this is kind of where you were coming from, if you're not able to integrate this experience into your level that then pushes you to another level, then you stay stuck at that level in the interpretation of that level of your experience. And then you are not using that for transformation. You're just using it because it feels good. And that was Jennifer's comment in here. So, creation, destruction come together in non-duality. So maybe that's part of the suffering of artists and musicians. Yes, if it's not integrated, but this is the magic of what you were saying, is like that moment in time can be integrated. And then you are able to grow and mature to another level. So here's my great question to you on this one. So, because we've just reached the crux of it, right? This is the pain spot for us humans, is how, as we're growing, it's a growing pain. We have to let go. And we are afraid of letting go. But so then moving from one stage to another in the development. So not just the experience of the moment, not just the context, but the growth, the personal growth and the personal transformation through the experience of creativity at a deeper level.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, where do you see that? How do you bridge that? What, in your experience and using biotrans energetics,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
do you jump?
yes, this is perfect. You cited the Tao, and also in honor of our Chinese guys, the Tao is something so deep to understand that most of the people, in my vision, doesn't understand, or they understand in a dual way. So it is true that the Tao say that yin and yang are complementary, but the Tao is not two, it's three. Yin, yang, and the Tao. The result of the complementarity is the three, which is one. If we just say, for example, about Jennifer, distraction and construction, of course, but this is two. The distraction and construction create life, which is the three. Create the self, which is the three. So getting these three is the main point of, if you want, I share with you a little.
Sure.
Again, something that you may remember in the other conference I spoke about Trinity.
Yes.
The Trinity, to me, is the basic archetype of any process. Remember the zero, again the zero, so again the self. But when the self, the picture of the circle is the self, but that self is dynamic. That self is always a process that goes from the zero to the one, to the two, to the three, to the zero again. This is the archetypal, the basic archetypal structure of the self. Any experience that flow goes through these steps, which are not steps in linear way. They are always together, here and now, beyond the space and beyond the time. But the ego, the little self, can be stuck into the one, into the two, into the three, or can be far from the zero. We should, to master the flow, the experience, we should respect the zero, the one, the two, the three. Now, there is not a time to enter in all these. I only want to point out the basic of these, which is this: going beyond the duality. I call the further mode. Because the key of any process is going beyond the duality. going beyond and making the two one. This is the reason why. Think to the Tao, no? Again, the Tao or the swastika or the Solomon or even the cross. All them says make the two one. But if you are in dual mind, we understand the things on the mode, and we don't get the broader circle that single mode create something else, which is the unity. This is what is in the stage, this is what is beyond the stage, this is the construction, there is the destruction, but the unity is getting, that circle, the bigger circle, that circle is unseen. You just see the things which is the thing is the fact, no? What happens? This, on the stage, you see what happens. To get the mode, to get the consciousness, you have to do something. But when you get the mode of the things, you create the condition to get this one, which is ineffable. We can say nothing about the Tao. The Tao we can say nothing, because the Tao is not the yin and the yang. Yin more yang. The Tao is the result of the yin more the yang. So the further mode always helps you to pass to the two from the three. But that three becomes zero, become one, then zero again.
Yeah, I mean but that's the real circle of creation. I mean, that's the process of creation that you're talking about. So it's interesting because really your answer is to go from, let's say, Wilbur's nice stages mapped out, that process of going to the next stage is also creativity.
Yeah,
And it is about, in this sacred way, leaning into the Tao and listening in, or whatever, all of the senses that you want to use, internal senses really as well. And again, there can be a tension
we may
between
say we may
what we
say that
want and what it's giving us, right? So this circle, we may like with these points, right, you may be with the three, and then you have that one in the middle. It's like disagreeing with where the circle is going, because hey, like you said, it's about the position in life. So maybe I don't like this, or maybe I don't want to be creating in this way, but hey, that movement, it's taking you there.
yeah,
So,
we may say that the basic pattern of creativity is making the two one.
yeah.
When you let the two become one, you are creative. Where you stuck into the two, you block the creative. The creativity is there, but you are not there.
Yes.
Also, if you look to the nature, what most creativity, more creative with nature? Nature is always making the two one. Think to the water flowing, think to the waves, think the fly of everything is making the two one. The seed becoming a blossom, everything is making the two one. And this making the two one, why is so difficult to make the two one? Because to make the two one, the two have to disappear. You have to disappear, to die. The creativity asks you to die in any moment, because it's not, the new doesn't come, of course.
Yes.
And this dying, this letting flow, this detach to ourself, our assumption, our beliefs, our fears, is the resistance to creativity that wants to happen.
Yes. Yes. No, I mean, and that's it, right? I wanted to also bring in, we have one of our PhD students is doing her dissertation on actually creativity. Sikun Lee is developing a model around, deep longing. that we have this deep longing for creativity, right? So I'm bringing it in here because that can be a roadmap to get from one stage to the next. So in other words, that deep longing is a personification, or a something that we are personally feeling at that moment in time, that allows us to say yes beyond the fear. Yes, I am going to let go, even if I will experience this little death,
Again,
because that longing is stronger than the fear.
yeah. Again, me and the fear is two. If I fight again, try to not be afraid with my own forces. This is a lost war. There is no way to fight against the fear. If I stay in contact, I observe, I let it go, I can realize that where there is the fear, there is the confidence. Where there is the fear, there is the angel wanting to bring me. Where there is the fear, there is the power, because I get that place. The fear is, I am not afraid to jump with from the plane if I don't get to the door of the plane to fly. So the power, the force of the self brought me in contact with the fear. If I only look to the fear, I am to the two. Beyond, there is the power of the self that wants me to rely, want me to let it go and let the power works. The self brings me, not me, but the force in me, not the fear, but of course I have to get this beyond, where the archetypes is there embracing me. If I get that place, become easier to pass through the fear. If not, it's almost impossible. How can face the fear of death or the fear to be refused by someone? It's so. If I am the daughter of the teenager or the older child, would be impossible. I have to. The older child could be become in contact with the wise one, with the warrior, with some other archetypes that brings me through the fear. Transpersonal works with archetypes, which is always there. But all this process, at the basis, there is making the two one. Me, the fear, and the strength. The wounded child, the warrior, and the overcome.
Yeah, and you know, that's the conversation. So you can be, and I think in a normal when we're not delving in this deep, creativity can be a sort of a performance thing, right? So it's like, am I performing to my utmost? You know, can I go further? You know, and this movement that has been there to be more effective, to be more, to perform with more has made creativity an important point of discussion, because wow, you know, otherwise we're stuck in the same things. I think there's a general level of consciousness that has realized that there is no way out unless you dive into something like this. But the
Yes,
discussion of diving into it because we want to control it, because we want it to be an aspect of our personality structure still, and bring it in instead of letting it transform us, I think is probably where, we're going astray in psychology in general, right? So it's that if we don't distinguish very clearly between the two, this conversation of creativity quickly just goes into a small c,
Yes, yes,
and not into this big C, which is
yes. I would like to share
telling.
another point, which is another, we should say that one of the super basic point of biotransenergetic, which is the trance. The trance, in my vision, is the unity of the experience. There is no way to separate me, the outer world, and the field. Any experience is always me, you, and the field. Any, again, making the two one. Because the trance is the pattern, the basic pattern of the self. Think again to the fair, me and the fair. If I don't conceive this one, me and the fair, how can face the fair? So hard. And think to how many psychology or many others strategies or methodology invite you to, I have to work on my fear. I have to face the fear. I have to fight the fear. I have to solve the fear. I have to, me and the fear only. I can be so creative. My I can be so creative trying to fight the fear. So many strategies to find the fear, but I will be stuck into the two. Maybe I won the fear. Maybe I go to the mirror and say, I am strong. I am not afraid, and I go working and I forgot the fear, but the fear is running after me. If I know but there is the field, whatever we can, because that field, of course, is the unit, the totality of the cells. It's so complex. To define the field is almost impossible. But for example, the field could be into the field here, could be, as we said before, the wise one. Could be the quality of acceptance, the quality of trusting, could be the memory of some story that tell me how the warrior in that situation fought the fair. And so by expanding my eye and getting some part of this, of the field, here I make the two one. Go here. Because I divided the field. This is me, this is you, this is the fair. The mesocosm, I divided the totality of the self in the place of archetype. If I expand my consciousness and I get these, I can get, as I told you, the qualities to face the fear. Would be much more easier to face my fear if I get this place. If I am aware that me, you, and the field are the experience, not just me and you. But to get these, to get the field is always something that need second attention, need making the two one, need to tolerate the uncertainty. And because this field is empty, it's from the emptiness that arises maybe the warrior, maybe the wise one, maybe the quality of acceptance. To pass from the two to the three, again, I have to give up your strategies, give up your goals, give up your what you want to reach, disappear to any idea, to any project. because the project are into the self, because the quality are into the self means the field. Of course, you have to tolerate that, you jump and you don't know what will happen. This jumping is the point, and people stay into the two because don't want, we all that dive into the field, you know.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, what you're basically saying is,
But for example,
you surrender, you ask for, it's asking for help. Like you change the relationship to the field
yes,
so that you can access that field to support you in growing, maturing, and being able to stabilize higher states of consciousness in an integrated way.
yes, also why this methodology, in my vision, is a contribution to the science, into the transpersonal is scientific in this way, because it's not enough that I say you have to trust in life, you have to let go because the spirit and so, the angels. But if I offer to you the trans model, me, you, and the field is the unity of the experience. You can verify. All of us can verify if it is true that the unity of the experience is me, you, and the field. We can't say anything but me, you, and the field. Experience. This way become scientific. Because if you tell me that there is some way, some possibility, for example, me and you are in relation this moment, but we can't avoid the field among us. We can dismiss, we cannot be not aware of the field among us. And
Well, you want to be.
that field is so complex because that field is, for example, the appreciation in, within each other would be the contest, the Sofia conference would be a lot. The field also is our students here listening to us. We are letting them on the backstage, but they are there. If you decide to expand our consciousness and, for example, enter in contact with the student there, a lot of things also would happen. But anyway, there are trans within trans within trans within trans. No way to escape.
No.
And if it is true that any relationship is three, we have to change our methodology.
You say that so easily.
I can say only me and me and the fair, because it's not true that are me and the fair. It's me, the fair, and the field.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
that field is full of lot of things, including the qualities, the archetypal qualities.
I mean, this is systems thinking is that you're speaking to, and so we're lucky to say that there is an increased focus on systems thinking, on regenerative economics, on including the field in our wider discussions so that we can build a future that is sustainable and worthwhile, because so you're bringing the conversation into the wider part of it, right? So creativity is not just personal. Creativity is a cooperation with the wider aspects of being, but very it's like it comes to a point, because that point is systems thinking, and so it is shifting the mindset. So one of the students also wrote this great paper, Yalili, about the different aspects of experience of self, which she started off with systems thinking, meaning that the social self is number one in the way she was approaching it, which is fascinating because we tend to, in Western philosophy, see the first one being me, the personal. But there she proposed, no, in different cultures, the first experience is the social experience, is the experience of the systems thinking as such, and then comes the personal, and then comes the cosmological. So we're diving deeper into that, and but it's just beautiful to see that maybe there's other perspectives that we need to include, like you're saying. Yes, the field, but some people start off with the field and then they say, like, what are culturally, I'm not understanding what the big deal is, but I understand what I'm trying to understand, how then the development of the little self then fits into that from a transpersonal perspective, right? So it's like sort of reversing the process of creativity. And
Yes, you want to be creative, master the trance. You want to be
by the way,
creative, dive into the field. Point. How to do this? A lot of things, but we have to be aware that creativity is always happening. If you do something to, you are linear, you are dual. The nature is round, always. If you go in a line, you never get A more B like get C. In this way, you don't get, you are not creative.
okay, so now comes a personal question, because you're a writer and you're also, made a movie, and so you're active in what we would call normally in normal normal, whatever normal is, but in these discussions of creativity on a wider in a wider way, you are a creator. So my question would be very simple. So how, like, what is your personal process of accessing this flow? Does it come to you at any moment in time? Like we say, oh, in the
This happens
shower.
first, this happens with disrupting experience. Some disrupting experience to break the wall and let you see beyond is needed in my vision. So this could be something like peak experience. It could be something thanks to maybe medicine plants. Could be something to the pain, suffering, that near experience. Some peak experiences that let you see beyond. Then, when you see beyond, then it's up to you. You can forget, or you can try to follow the light, you know. And what happens to me was that since that 82, I start receiving insight and maps and to do this, you know. This doesn't mean, of course, that I get somewhere because someone that from that field, from that self, I receive this. One thing is receiving, another is
Expressing.
conforming with because it's something so, for example, acceptance, observance, acceptance, and awareness, or passage to the zero, staying persistence of contact and mastery of trance is something that never-ending process. But what I call now transcognition is we have to, no, I resume in this way. Don't do anything that doesn't respect your own inner rhythm. When we are in contact with our inner rhythm, thinking flows. It's the self that is thinking to us.
Yeah.
It's not us. But the point is, don't do anything that doesn't respect your inner rhythm, or be aware when you do.
Yeah.
In my vision, this is the best point to be in contact, and then, of course, recognize, for example, think to the insight. Insight comes. But what happens when you have an insight? Usually you are in a state of grace, you are relaxed, you are flowing, you are in love, which are the bases, the basic structures of this state of consciousness, this flow. Try to respect this and recognize that then you are not necessary. Let it come. Let the thoughts come. Let the words come. Don't prepare anything. Don't have a project. Accept to stay into the emptiness and in contact with the flow. Tolerate the uncertainty. Tolerate that you don't know what you say, what we will say next word. Because creativity comes from emptiness. The more we get emptiness, the more we will be creative. This is what I try to do. Not always this happens, but. And speaking on transcognition, which is the way I teach now with my students, transcognition means the same process when we have an insight is a light and then the light ends. Creating the condition by being in contact with inner rhythm, by being in contact with the field, by expanding consciousness and let it flow. Teachings, insights come one after other. Now, the normal thinking is putting concept one after the other. Transcognition is putting insight one after other. That flow of thought, the inspiration of the artist, of the poetry, which could be a normal state of thinking, if we are aware that we can.
Yeah, thank you. That was beautiful. It's like it's how you receive it. Mm.
Won't you, I share in just few minutes, the trailer of
Yeah,
the.
we do. We just have a few minutes, and I there's also another last question that popped in, some
Hey,
reflections. But you know, so we didn't even go. We didn't even have time. So like you said, we really need a few days because, there is the whole dynamic of clinical psychology in this, and it's like the therapy aspect here too. And how you would approach all of that with this system, because we all tend to think in boxes. So that last reflection goes into that direction. There's inner self, external world, what happened, external reality, provide the therapeutic field, contain 1 and 2, then 4. Wait, let the
Almost,
healing happen and being expressed in its own time. Yeah,
almost.
there's like more dynamics in there, and I think that's the tricky part here, that
That that
Pierre
4
Luigi
is
tried
coming
to
back to the zero.
explain. Yes, but it's like you try to explain it, but there's so many dynamics. So I think the word you were using, rhythm, is really key here, because in an organic moving circle, you cannot it's sort of like saying, well, the Tao, the moment you name the Tao, it's no longer the Tao. This is the same type of thing, right? So it's like rhythm is probably as close as you can get to it. So thank you for bringing that in, and thank you for the whole conversation, and also sharing how you personally access this, because it's difficult. It's not an easy thing, and sometimes we think
Like Zen says, before seems easy, but it's not. Then seems difficult, then get easy again.
yeah, but all the time, rhythmically. uh Thank you so much, Pier Luigi. Well, we will continue the conversation one way or the other. Let's see how all of this unfolds, and yeah, oh, Leon. And see, this
So,
conversation also has its rhythm, Pier Luigi. We started, we'll continue.
can we see the trailer before
Yes,
ending?
yes, we can. Let's do it, because that's another expression of your creativity, and it brings it all to the point. Don't forget to share the sound on your screen. It works.
Se noi pensiamo alla nostra vita, possiamo accorgerci che come esseri umani siamo prigionieri all'interno di un sogno. È come se la nostra esperienza umana fosse un'esperienza nella quale dapprima siamo nella caverna.
The cave is a very old metaphor. So the cave represents the ways in which we limit ourselves.
The process of coming out of our individual isolated self is the awakening.
Risvegliarsi vuol dire uscire da un sogno, uscire da una illusione.
If I want to awaken, I need to do things to activate my evolutionary awakening.
We have to find the direction that brings us to more light.
I wish people to find the courage to open the heart.
I would like that
they got the consciousness of being in the world.
Tutto questo sembra estremamente difficile, invece a poco che ci risvegliamo le cose diventano semplicissime. Dobbiamo scomparire a noi stessi e lasciarci portare dalla grazia del nostro sé, che poi è la coscienza universale che ci attraversa.